and then it stirs up those who do not believe, and so they run Paul out of town. And they come to Jason's house, and they besiege it, and they bring him in to question him. And so in verse number 2, he's recalling to their mind and their memory of all that went on. And then in verse 3, he's exhorting them how that he came not with deceit or deceptive words or all these other guile or subtle acts. And then verse number 4, he speaks about how we were allowed of God to come and share the gospel, and they believed it, and they were receiving it. In verse 5, it speaks about how God was his witness, that they did not come with flattering words. In other words, in Paul's day, there was all this Roman, Greekish rhetoric that they would try to use to polish up their speech so it would be more appeasing to the ear. He didn't come with all those fancy words. He came with simple words that would make anybody from a child all the way to an adult understand what he was saying. He speaks about all these different things, how they came to him as apostles. In verse number 6, he speaks about how he came as a parent who would be tender towards their children in verse 7, verse 8, and in verse number 9, he speaks about how they came laboring with great labor so that they did not have to have any need from their support financially. And he says that you, in verse 10, were witnesses how he lived holy lives. In other words, there was all these accusations about Paul and about his comrades, about all these particular things in the ancient world. They accused these believers as leading resistance against Rome because they believed in another king besides Caesar, and his name was Jesus. And you can read about that in Acts chapter 17 as part of their accusation. But leading up to now coming in to verse 13, he writes all of that to lead into this verse about how when Paul came and talked to Jason and talked to them about his word, he said, you received it, and we are thankful. Would you say thankful with me? Thankful. We have got to, first of all, be thankful that God has given us his word. Now, obviously, there's a lot of debate about the Bible. Sure, you can go to different universities and different seminaries, and not everybody's going to be on the same page about certain matters. But I tell you what is unmistakably clear, that the Bible is the authoritative word of God, that God spoke the world into existence with his own breath, and that God made us in his image, and that God has given us a paper trail of evidence that this can be assured of the word of God. This Bible that we have did not just magically jump at us out of heaven. It didn't fall down from the sky with lights and halos. No, it was written by different human beings through the course of all those years in the ancient history, and God providentially and sovereignly brought it all together so that all we did was recognize what God has already declared to be true. And so here he says, you've received it. So today we have chapter and verse markings. We have division.